Looks like we're going.
It looks like we're good.
Yeah, I think so. Episode 2.
Yeah.
We're going to double our episode count today.
Yeah. Yeah, we made it.
Look at this growth.
It's awesome. Well, yeah, here we are. Yeah.
I thought the first one went really well too. I mean, that was fun. Like, I look forward to these.
So do I. It was really cool to see, you know, some of the emails and text messages and stuff, you know, that we got.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we are. We're just keep diving down and get to some truth. So yeah, so here we are, the episode number 2, the A is A podcast, where we believe truth is a cornerstone to your success. And we're gonna start today's topic off with what, Andy?
I thought today we'd talk about some common fitness misconceptions, myths, errors in thinking, you know, just some kind of stuff that's lingered around for a while that a lot of people think, and maybe some of it is a little inaccurate, and we can kind of set the record straight as we see it a little bit, or give pointers.
Yeah, for sure.
Sound like a good idea?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I know there's definitely a lot of that out there, and it leads to a lot of confusion, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's tackle some of that and dive into it.
Okay. So I think the first one that I'm going to start with is, maybe this is just on my mind because I actually bought a new pair of running shoes today. Oh. My old ones were 5 years. Yeah, my old ones were 5 years old, and it was time for a new pair. The weather's starting to get a little nicer, and I want to go running again. But the myth I wanted to talk about, or myth, misconception, whatever you want to call it, is that running or a ton of cardio is required to lose weight.
Oh.
Not that it's not helpful or anything, but just that it's required. And what I'm thinking is how many people you see just doing hours and hours and hours on treadmills or ellipticals or running outside, and they don't even like it. They dread it, but they're doing it overkill, like 5 days a week and miles on end. And they think that they have to in order to get the body that they want, if they're trying to tone up or whatever, you know? So I think maybe I would start by saying that I think that resistance training is actually better for losing weight purposes. It builds muscle, which increases your metabolism. So it boosts your metabolism long term, because that muscle that you build, resistance training stays with you for quite a while afterwards. You know, it can take years to lose it once you've built some. Yeah, do you want to say anything about that, like right off the start?
Yeah, it's a great topic, because I've seen it for years, and I see it all over now, where clients or individuals will think that to get leaner, they need to run harder and run farther and run more, when there's really the inverse correlation to weight loss and running. You know, when I guess I could sort of dive into some of the sciencey stuff behind that, but like, we know that when we run or stimulate the aerobic system for long term, cortisol, the stress hormone, increases. And when cortisol increases, the ability to burn fat decreases. And then fat storage increases for like a survival mechanism.
Right.
And so a lot of people will actually have like backfired results with that, and they don't like it, and they get injured, and there's this spiraling effect that a lot of times leads to just like, you know, true failure, you know, and they get really frustrated.
Yep. On your point about cortisol, if they don't like it, on top of that, like, a lot of people are forcing themselves to slog out all these miles on the treadmill, elliptical, whatever. And if you don't like it, that's going to raise cortisol even more. You know, than if you actually enjoyed it. The thing you said about the inverse correlation, you know, a lot of people are kind of setting themselves back a little bit by doing this. You know, if they just, you know, ditch that or lower the amount that they're doing and do some resistance training instead, they could get better results. I'll say for me personally, because you know me, I have a long history of distance running, and many years I've like competed in marathons and 15Ks and things like that.
Yep.
And I've seen my body change over like 20 years of doing this, where the periods where I'm just like focusing on resistance training, body weight training, that sort of thing,
Yep.
that's when I'm the leanest and I look the best.
Yep.
When I'm running like 50 miles a week, that's when my abs start to cover over with a little bit of fat, you know, and it's funny because people would think it'd be the opposite. You know, that's kind of the misconception. So you see that all the time.
Yeah. You're spot on.
So,
I've walked that same exact path as you, where, you know, I've taken.
You used to race some like 15Ks and 5Ks and stuff from time to time.
Yeah, some Boilermaker stuff. Definitely not the background that you have, but yeah, a little bit of distance running, much more frequently than what I do now. But no doubt, like muscle mass decreases, and then you can see maybe, you know, a 2 to 3% change in body fat, all from just changing the mechanism of, you know, from strength training, hypertrophy based stuff to aerobic. And there's nothing inherently wrong with aerobic training or running, but if the goal is to get leaner, that's what we're saying. Because I think it could be easily, you know, misquoted to say that running's bad. Basically, what we're saying, and running is not.
I'm careful not to say that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just not the most efficient way or healthy way to get lean. Now, you know, if that same person,
I'm just going to chime in there. What you just said, it's not the most efficient way. That's really good news for people. That's what I want people to take this, because it's really good news for the many people who think that they have to do that. And to hear you say like, that's actually not the most efficient way. That's like, oh, good, I don't have to do this anymore.
Like
a lot of people.
Like literally 4 days a week of 20 minutes of strength training with good food and sleep, you get ripped. You know? And like that as opposed to 3 to 4 1-hour running sessions at a 10-minute mile in, you know, a condition that you don't want to be in. And then you don't see results. Yeah, for sure. That is definitely a really good place to start this topic, because the media and fitness has told us that too, that we have to run or row or do aerobic sweat work to get leaner. You need to do aerobic sweat work to get better at things that require aerobic capacity.
You got a sport or something that you're training for that requires that capacity, like you said, you want to train that.
For sure. And if you enjoy it. So let's say you don't care about aesthetics, or maybe you're happy where you are, and we take everything else and delete it, and you simply enjoy trail running, cross-country skiing, rowing, whatever it is for you, that's great. Then, you know, it's not damaging you per se, you know, it's and especially if you like it, then yeah, it's better than watching Netflix.
One of the little bullet points I have written down here is you know, making a case for running, which is that, like, to me, I always say if you want to run, you should run because you enjoy it. It's something that you like doing, because if you actually like it, like me, I'm going to go for a run today. I love running. It's a stress reliever. So it's not actually raising my cortisol, it's lowering it. It's making me feel better. If you get that psychological benefit from it, if you come back in a better mood, if it, you know, makes you feel good, that's a really great reason to run.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm definitely not against running at all.
Yeah, and me and you know a lot of people that get a really good positive effect from running. And I think they should keep doing that. I'm not one of them. But that's okay.
I'll also point out, this is kind of worth, people don't think about this sometimes, but running has a selection bias where, so a lot of people might watch, you know, Olympic runners on TV or something and be like, oh, they're all so skinny and lean and I want to look like that, so I should start running because that's what made them look like that. And it's like, no, they gravitated towards running because they were already built with that body. You know, it's like looking at a basketball player and being, you know, seeing that he's 6'7" and being like, I want to be 6'7". I should start playing basketball. It's like, no, he played basketball because he was that tall. Like we all gravitate towards the things that we're like kind of built to because we will do well in it.
Yep.
So it's important to not look at a certain type of athlete or whatever and think that their sport is necessarily what gets them the shape that they have.
That's a really, really good point that I'll play off of, because like when someone's looking at exercises to choose from, and then we all are obviously built differently, there's definitely methods that are more efficient for certain body types than others for general health, right? Like just what you were saying. So like an ectomorph, like a really skinny, thin boned individual is going to naturally gravitate more towards running to make them feel better and maybe, you know, improve health.
Yep.
But someone that is not built like that, like a mesomorph, naturally muscle bound, or an endomorph, higher levels of body fat, are naturally probably not going to gravitate to that. But as we've seen, they force themselves to go that way because of what they're told about getting leaner or looking like that runner.
Right.
But it's exactly what you said. The runner that looks like that didn't look like that because of running. They probably already did look like that, and they're just gravitating to running.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the first one I had. We'll jump on to the second.
Yeah, definitely.
The second one was more is better. And I mean, I'm sure you know exactly what I mean by that already, but you know, there's always I guess I want to make the point that there's kind of an optimal dosage for exercise. You know, I mean, too little is obviously not going to do anything for you, but just because the sort of exercise that you're doing is effective, maybe you have effective programming, you're doing a good program, more isn't always better. Like more sets, more days of the week. I think sometimes people have that feeling that they always need to do like more days in the gym or something like that, and neglect maybe the rest period. I don't know if you want to start off by saying anything about the more is better, or if you see that from time to time.
Well, yeah. So right on my annual calendar, I have like a series of bullet points that organize some blocks of thinking for me and going into the year. One of those right now is less is more. And what I mean by that is in fitness, for me, I'm trying to hack that efficiency. I think you've done an awesome job at that. I actually bring you up a lot when I talk to people about this, but like not training as much volume or intensity as the body can take, but efficiently getting to the same ends in a healthier way with less time spent doing it. That is huge. And this is something
that's the ideal, is to like have the minimum effective dosage. Like, you know, don't beat your body into the ground, but do the amount that gives you the, you know, the optimal result, but no more than that.
Yeah. And when we talk, I ask you like, what did you do for training this week? And you say, well, I did one set of overhead dumbbell carries and like 5 press handstands. And I'm like, okay, like that's a warm up. And you're like, nope, that was like the whole workout. And then I look at like your physical capabilities and what you can do and the health of your joints and all of this. And I'm like, I'm inspired by that for sure, but that is what I'm drawing off of. And the more that I read from like Rob Wolf, Chris Kresser, and a bunch of other people that are hacking into the minimalistic side of training, especially as we get older, right?
Or Pavel, I think he has a bit on that too.
Yeah. I did a lot of that in 2020 where they were just 10, 12-minute kettlebell sets, and then the training was done.
And I see a lot of your posts on Instagram now. You're always putting these short, efficient workouts where you're like in and out in like 15 minutes.
Done. Yeah.
I see you do those in the gym, and it's like you go hard. You get a lot out of those 15 minutes, but it's like that's what you need to improve whatever you're trying to train. Usually for jiu-jitsu is what you're working on now. And you get it done, and that's it. And then it's recovery and rest time. Let the body rebuild.
Yeah, and one of the gaps I'm trying to bridge, so like what we're talking about, like less is more as far as like like intensity and volume perspective. But what I'm trying to work on, and you're really good at this, and I got to figure this out, but like moving more throughout the day in an unloaded pattern that isn't creating damage.
Yep.
So like air squats, lunges, push up, hang, you know, stuff that for us is maybe like a 30%, right, output.
Yep.
That there, I think I really think, I'm going to figure this out over time, and me and you will, but like, I think there's a really golden nugget in there. And I don't mean like just to be healthy. I mean like actually improving on strength and, you know, muscle density or whatever it is that you are still pursuing. I think that is a missing component in my life. It definitely is, because like I'm either going and I'm going hard,
Yep.
or I'm doing computer work, or, you know, reading or sitting. There's not a lot of in between.
Yep.
And I
And
need more.
I do a lot of that really low level movement all throughout the day. You saw it when we were roommates for a while a year back. But like every couple hours I'm doing something.
Yeah.
But it's very low level. It's not so actually that brings me to my next bullet point on the same topic. I love you brought up the intensity and volume is like really where this, you know, this point needs to be made, because I said the main thing is intensity. Like it's the highly intense stuff that you don't want to do, you know, every single day or go too long on. That's the stuff you do less often because you need more recovery. And it's the less intense stuff, which is exactly what you're talking about now with like using me as an example here, that you can do really frequently, 2 or 3 times a day if you want to, because it's very low level. It's more like active recovery as opposed to a workout.
Yep.
Like my preference is, you know, I think really, I guess it depends on the person what they're training for, but I think a lot of times really effective training is going to be a mix of high and low intensity. And the really high intensity stuff is going to be we're focused, we're targeted, we're going to work really hard, but that's like maybe 2 or 3 days a week, you know, in a pretty short period of time. And then the low intensity stuff is just sprinkled all throughout your day as often as you can, as often as you like. That's, and like the low intensity stuff can just be mobility or, you know, ultra easy, just hanging from a pull-up bar, stretch out the shoulders. That I love having that mix like that.
Yeah, I think you're onto something with the 2 to 3 days a week of intense training, because when we look at like delayed onset muscle soreness, there's that 48-hour window for peak soreness. And so if you look at, let's just take 2 days where you train hard and then you have your 48-hour recovery, train hard, 48-hour recovery, you're back to basically a new week. Or you put in a 3rd day, but you're giving enough time to recover from those intense sessions.
And you need your nervous system to recover too. I mean, you know, if you were doing like a max effort deadlift session, you're probably, I mean, you might need like a week to 10 days to recover from that neurologically. If you're like really chasing like a 1 rep max or something like that.
Yep. I heard the other day, I think it was on Joe Rogan podcast. There was a strength coach on there. I forget who it was, but they had said that the Russian strength training secret for all the Olympics that they've won and what they've done in that sport.
Russians are so far ahead on this stuff.
They are. And you know what it came down to, the summary of it was that they rarely exceed 70% effort on a training day, ever. Like only maybe when they're just peaking for a competition will they throw some testers and stuff out there, but they're in that 60 to 70% range. So if you have a 100-pound back squat, they're squatting 60 to 70 pounds for 8 to 10 reps. But they're training daily. Which allows them to do that because the percentage is low. And so like, you know, for example, like if I can do a 1-minute handstand, I would be training like sets of 30 seconds. You know,
that allows you to do it more frequently because you've lowered the intensity.
Exactly. And I think, and I'm pretty sure that more frequent touches as opposed to higher intensity with less touches is going to lead to better results long term. I'm almost positive on that, but
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I think so too. That's a bit of the grease in the groove technique where you're, because strength and a lot of these things that we do, strength itself is a skill. I mean, body awareness, perfect positioning, perfect form, finding all your leverages and stuff, and skills take practice to master. And if you're only doing it once a week, you know, you're hitting your muscles, but you might not be getting that practice, that mind muscle connection and actually learning the movement properly. If you can do it more often, then you're getting more practice and so you get better at it.
For sure. I think about like the hunter-gatherer days. They were always moving at a
Mhm.
low percentage output,
Yep.
but maybe once every week or 2 weeks, they would have a hard physical enduring, whether they got a big kill and they had to drag something, or they got into a fight with the neighboring tribe. Like that's a high output.
Away from something. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But they weren't doing high output 5 days a week.
Right.
And so again, this is like, this is all for the number of years I've lived in this field. It's all still, I'm learning this. And I think there's, I'm excited for it. You'd think a lot of people do get bored with as long as we've been in this field, because it's still like bench press Monday, 3 sets of 10, legs Wednesday,
Right.
and core on Saturday. Like, and they've seen no results for 12 years. We're still peeling those layers off. And this is a new layer for me, a lot of which I've learned from you, that I think is going to be really exciting to see where that goes.
For sure. Another one, this isn't like, this is a related misconception, so it's kind of tacked on that to that same topic, but just a reminder to people that workouts shouldn't be all about chasing soreness or chasing exhaustion. This is kind of the people thinking the more is better. People are also often chasing, like, they want to feel wrecked after a workout, or they want to be laying in a puddle of sweat, or it wasn't a good workout unless I was on the verge of puking, you know? There's a time and place for some of that, but you definitely don't want to do that too often. And the sign of a good workout is definitely not if you were sore the next day or not. I mean, sometimes you'll leave a really good, effective training session feeling great afterwards, and not be sore at all the next day. In fact, I think more often than not, that should be the case.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I lived in that world for a long time.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm impressed. I know what you've done in the past with all your like CrossFit experience and other things you've done beyond that. But yeah, that's it doesn't last too long.
No, it's a short-term window. You see it in all the games athletes, you see it in MMA, you see it in the NFL. It's not sustainable, So yeah, I actually, now my goal is to not be sore if possible through training. Like, moderate soreness is fine, but if I have to like limp around for 4 days after leg day, I did something wrong.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. You overreached on that workout.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, like, proper programming, as we know, is a science and it's an art. And so like, you may need a low dose response to get great results. Like the other day I pulled, like, I think a total of 30 deadlifts in the whole workout and 10 press handstands. It was my whole workout. I did it in like 25 minutes.
Nice.
And that's very low volume, you know, and they were maybe 75% effort deadlifts. And then press handstands, as you know, for me is more of a moderate base movement. And so that was it, and I wasn't sore, I wasn't injured, I wasn't jacked up, I could go on the next day and feel fine. And I think for everyone listening, that finding that 60 to 70% effort, and not, like they say, AMRAP, as many reps as possible, that may, and like you said, it might have a time and place, and that's a big maybe.
Yeah.
If you're competing, or you need to know what that's like to enter that zone.
That's where I'm thinking has a time and place, is for people who are going to do something where they need to have the ability to go there.
Yeah, but life in general is not that.
No way.
And, and you're not going to get any more results with fat loss. You're not going to get stronger. You will get mentally stronger for sure. No doubt. Like, there would be a huge stimulus there, and you will see results to some degree, but as far as being sustainable,
right.
Not going to happen. And it's not just myself, but I've seen it in hundreds of people. So
cool. Well, the next one is one where you'll be able to talk more about this than me, because you've done really well here. But I wanted to talk about stretching a little bit. And I think one thing I would point out is, if you're actually trying to increase flexibility, you can't, stretching is tough. A lot of people stretch because they know that they're tight or whatever, but they don't see any results with it at all. And that's kind of where I wanted to go, is what effective stretching looks like and what it takes to actually achieve results. Because I mean, the results that you got over the course of a few years from, I mean, I remember your straddle ups you were doing on a 20-inch box, and then, you know, after a while you're doing middle splits and, you know, Stalder presses, which involve incredible flexibility in the hamstrings and adductors. So you can lengthen your muscles and become a lot more flexible, but you have to do it right. One thing is, I think one big mistake people make is just going through the motions. You know, a lot of people will like do all the common stretches that we always see people doing, you know, quad and hamstring stretches, hurdler stretches, that sort of thing. But it's more like they're almost paying lip service to it, kind of, where they're just like, well, I'm supposed to stretch, so I'll sit here and like touch my toe for a minute, but there's no effort and intention to get better. So that's definitely one thing. Because I know when you were improving all of your flexibility, there was a lot of effort on your part to like really push into some new ranges. And maybe one more thing that I'll say here is that frequency is required. You know, like even clients that I see maybe, you know, 2 days a week or 3 days a week, you know, it's easy for a client to think, geez, like, I work out twice a week, and, you know, towards the end of our session, we always stretch my hamstrings, but they're not getting any tighter over the course, or I mean, any looser over the course of a year. With stretching, that's like something where if you want to actually make real progress, it's like at least a daily thing, but sometimes like 2 or 3 times a day. You know, I don't know if you want to chime in on that at all.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the first thing I was going to start with, is frequency. You know, stretching, just like strength training or proper eating, is a method. Like, it's not just, you know, pull on your foot and twist around. Like, there's an intent in a prescription that goes along with A, what are you trying to mobilize? B, how are you going to do it? And then sticking to that protocol over a period of time. There's an actual plan there. So like whether it's straddle ups or, you know, diagonal stretch, figure fours, like Jefferson curls, shoulder dislocates, German hangs, like all of that requires a plan and like progressions over time. But the frequency piece is the key. Like when I was working on like elbow to toe, head to toe, and some of the extreme ranges that I've let go just because it doesn't fit my goals currently, and I can get back there probably quite quick. But yeah, you're talking multiple times a day, not long periods though.
Oh no, you're doing it for like 10 minutes at a time, right?
Or less. Yeah, like I think like for the head to toe, I was training 100 pulses or bounces per side, probably 4 times a day, which is like what, 5 minutes each. But again, that's
4 times a day.
And that's, you know, over a course of 2, 3, 4 months of increased range, and I'm intent on every pulse. I'm not just sleeping through it. So like I'm trying to get farther, and then I'm monitoring progress with like, you know, is it a fist, 4 fingers, 3, you know, where am I? Why am I not making progress? Like there's thought behind it.
You're actually measuring this, and like you have the intent of improving from, you know, this position to the fist to the 3 finger and so on.
For sure. And I think that, you know, there's stretching and then there's real stretching. And so like real stretching, I defined as what I took away from Ito, and it was the only stretching program I've seen results with, is loaded progressive stretching, LPS. And that's where you're using your body weight or an implement to stretch you, and you're actually moving through a range of motion and not just holding it and falling asleep. I have never seen results where you just like sit out and like hang out for like a minute or
hold your toe for a minute. And
no, that's useless. You might as well just go do like lunges or like move through an active range under load, and you will get more mobile.
I love that you went there, because my next bullet point was just that it doesn't have to be static. In fact, it shouldn't be. You can do a little bit of static stretching at the end if you want to, but dynamic is far more effective. And you have to be careful with it. Dynamic doesn't mean you just throw yourself into the stretch where you can tear a muscle. You know, you're really careful. You use the word pulsing. You would like pulse up and down into the stretch.
Or anything like, you know, straddle ups, like you're moving through the range, diagonal stretch, you're leaning back, you know, that shin box figure 4, you know, you're rolling to your knees and back, Jefferson curl down and up, you know, shoulder dislocates, we're moving through. So we're moving through under load the whole time. And that's real stretching. And then to go farther with that is then you combine that with like reps, sets, frequency, length of time you're doing something before you move on, all of that. And then you do get more mobile. Now, it's easy to get frustrated based on the body part you're trying to get more mobile and the length of time required. So for example, like a middle split can take, well, for some people it'll be impossible based on age and just different things, but 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
For someone like us.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, and now if you're looking at, you know, maybe a German hang or some kind of maybe you know, palms flat to the floor.
Yep.
Some of these are more like 90 days to 6 months, you know. But again, look at those time frames I'm using. I'm not saying like 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a fast one.
Right.
You know, so, and stretching, I think that most people don't like it. I happen to learn to like it because I was able to take new ranges and see how they improved other areas of my life. And whether it's a deadlift, power clean, jujitsu, playing with Asher, like I can actually correlate that to say I've gotten better at straddle ups and I can feel a huge difference in my back squat.
Yeah.
People that can't correlate that ever is well, A, they're probably not seeing results, but
very unlikely to succeed with it.
Yeah, they don't, yeah, for sure. They don't know what's improving.
Right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I have increased my muscle length on anything, you know, my flexibility in any area, and I've seen it actually improve some other activities that I want to do, I'm so thrilled to have that. And it does motivate me to continue trying to become more flexible. But you got to have that connection for sure, because stretching just for the fun of stretching for 99% of people is not going to be, I don't find it fun.
Yeah, no, definitely not, for sure. And, you know, I think that I always think of it like on a timeline. So we have like super mobile. So like you're talking like yogis that can like, you know, put their legs around their heads and all that stuff. And then you have like power lifters that can't touch their kneecaps, right? And then you have everyone in between. So the more mobile you get, generally the weaker you will be. And these are generalizations, but it's pretty accurate. And so depending on your goal, you know, if you want to be a really good yogi and get, you know, really, really flexible, that's great. Understand that your deadlift and maybe sprint times and pull-ups aren't going to get stronger during that period. Yep. And that's sort of where I am, where if I still had, let's say, a head to toe and some of those big ranges in my arsenal, that would not assist and would maybe hurt jujitsu, because I need to be tighter in certain areas under pressure.
Yeah, I remember you saying that to me a few weeks ago, that you were not worried about trying to increase your range of motion anymore because you want to actually be tighter in some of these extreme ranges of motion where you actually need to stabilize and have some control and power.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you get pushed into a really what I'll call like a tight position, and you're really mobile to get to the tight position in the first place, that's very hard to get out of, and you might not be getting out of that, as opposed to just not getting there in the first place.
All right, we can hit the next one here. The next topic I had was the idea that weights will make you, lifting weights or doing resistance training will make you bulky. And to that, we can also attach the marketing word toning that a lot of fitness programs use. This applies to everyone, but I mean, obviously, usually the toning term is marketed towards women, and women are usually the ones who are a little less, they're a little more hesitant to lift weights because they're worried about getting bulky. So I definitely wanted to touch on this just a little bit. One thing I would say, I guess I would say this to a female who was starting a fitness program and who was worried that resistance training was going to make her bulky. Maybe she listened to the first part of this podcast, and we said that resistance training is a better way to lose weight than the treadmill. So she's going to take us at our word for that. She's going to start with resistance training, but she's worried that it's going to make her bulky. First thing is, building muscle gives your body shape, and it gives you the shape that you want. You know, the shape that we're looking for, like the toned arms is usually what, you know, people talk about or whatever. You have to actually have some muscle underneath to kind of give your body the right curves and to have a little, you know, definition in between them and so on, to have that look that a lot of people are going for. And I'll also add to that it takes a lot of work to get, you know, when you picture people who are muscle bound or who might be called bulky, it takes a ton. You have to put deliberate effort into getting there. You have to want to get bulky to get bulky. It takes, I mean, you have to like really be pushing a lot of heavy weights for, you know, a pretty long period of time, been continuous with resistance training. And that has to have been your goal. Nobody gets bulky by accident, you know? So yeah, before I say more, I mean, I don't know, do you want to touch on this or?
Yeah, I look at it as, so like two things with that category is, first is you generally need to eat to get bulky. So you got to eat to fuel the muscle mass growth. So if you're not eating to fuel the growth, you're not going to get bulky.
Right.
So that's the first thing I think about. And then the second thing is you have to be doing a specific style of strength training to get bulky.
Hypertrophy.
Yeah, hypertrophy training, exactly. So like what that means, hypertrophy is muscle building, and that is generally a set of a time under tension. So that means moving through the range of motion between 40 and 70 seconds.
Yeah.
That's going to put mass on. So if you're doing chin-ups and you hit the timer, you're going to be moving up and down for 40 to 70 seconds to build the muscle mass within the chin-up, you know, the biceps or whatever. Now, if you're working in that under 40-second range and you're eating a normal calorie-based diet, you're not going to get muscle bound. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You and I have trained for quite a long time. Neither of us, I don't think, are bulky. I don't know. You carry a little more muscle than I do, but
no, like
I feel like a pretty small, lean person, you know?
Yeah, I have to actually make big shifts in my lifestyle, food, and training to get what would be for an ectomorph would be bulky, right? And so, yeah, I have to eat significantly more, which me and you have talked about before. I have to definitely focus on solely strength training only, no aerobic work, as we said in the beginning. And I need to recover a lot. So like maybe 3 sessions for a week, but just a ton of rest, let my body grow. That's not an interest of mine now, but like if I were to want to put on 10 pounds of mass today, you know, those would be the 3 things that I would go after. But that's not what people are doing when they're scared of lifting weights of getting bulky, for sure.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody should be resistance training for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want to be, you know, if bodybuilding is your path and you want to do that, you have to train specifically for that and eat specifically for that. It takes deliberate effort to get there. I'll add to that you know, for people who are worried about their physique and don't want to look bigger, muscle takes up a lot less space than fat. So, I mean, you know, if you start resistance training, you add 5 pounds of muscle to your body, but you lose 5 pounds of fat, you're going to look smaller. You're going to be in smaller clothes. You're going to be trimmer. You're going to have a better shape. You're not going to look bigger from the 5 pounds of muscle.
For sure. You could take a guy, you know, that weighs 2 guys that weigh 170 and one's 6% body fat and the other one's 22% body fat. And, you know, they look nothing alike, you know? And so, yeah, the muscle doesn't make you pop out of your clothes and this and that, you know, fat does.
And I guess we can wrap this one up with just talking about the importance of having muscle. Like, I mean, you really do want muscle, aside from just the shape and whatnot, like we were talking about, if you're worried about aesthetics. But on top of that, having muscle on your body, especially in your later years, I think it is the primary factor in life expectancy.
Yeah.
There's this sarcopenia is the term for age-related muscle loss, which tends to happen after like 60, 70 years old, and that's something you really want to stave off. So for people who are like, beyond 40 now and then 50 and so on, like adding muscle to your body and or just keeping the muscle that you have really should be a priority if long-term health is your goal, living longer and being functional later on in life.
Yep, I think about that as like we're fighting atrophy.
Yeah,
and
we
so
really are.
we really are, truly. And you see this in all populations, generally over the age of 35, 40, you start seeing this, especially over 55, 60, where that muscle density just keeps wasting away. And the only way to keep the muscle density is through strength training. You can do all the walking you want in the world, all the running you want in the world, eat all the broccoli you want in the world, but you need to strength train to keep muscle, because muscle is going to go away if you don't use it.
Yep.
And, if there was one prescription only that I could give someone, 50 plus, let's say, to be healthy long-term and to be independent and all of that nice stuff, would be strength training for sure. No doubt. Yep.
I'll throw on there on top of that, because we're talking about sarcopenia. I wasn't thinking about this until just now, but resistance training is also a great way to increase bone density. And, osteopenia, osteoporosis, that's also an issue later on. So not only are you going to help build and preserve that muscle that you've got so you can live longer, you also strengthen your bones. And I mean, we're really trying to prevent frailty. Like eventually that happens to everyone. We want to stave that off for as long as possible.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a handful of clients come through here with osteoporosis or pre-osteoporosis. They've done the bone density scans, and the doctor, the only recommendation they give them, there's two things I've seen, strength train and like bouncing, impact, that kind of like light impact, jump rope, and then a highly nutritious diet. Vitamins, minerals, vegetables, healthy proteins, and that's that. And so without a doubt, I have seen in the clients that have came and have implemented those protocols, the bone density rescans will stay the same and not get worse. Right. Now, I've read and heard conflicting things saying that you can grow bone. I don't know. Have you seen that? Like, can you reverse and get better on those, or no?
Yeah, people's bone mineral density does increase.
Oh, wow.
Yep, that is possible. There's plenty of people who've done before and after scans and actually had their bone mineral density go up.
Wow.
And your bones will remineralize. There might be, I'm not sure, there might be a point in life, I don't know if it would be after like 60 or 70 or something, where maybe the activity of the osteoblasts that build new bone tissue starts to decrease, and maybe it becomes impossible to keep building new bone. But certainly for most of your life, you can increase your bone density.
Wow.
So you can actually reverse, osteopenia maybe. If it goes too far, then you might not be able to get it back. But so certainly preventing it in the first place is the most important thing.
Sure. Yeah. And what basic advice the doctors are giving, it's the same advice that we give.
Yep. And it's so simple. That's the truth of it. It's simple advice, but it's effective.
Well, and the common saying is like, use it or lose it.
Yeah.
So muscles are there for a reason.
Yep.
And so if you're not using them and they go to sleep, they waste away.
Sure. Yeah. You have no reason for them anymore. So the body gets rid of them.
And I can see, that strength training is intimidating and confusing to a lot of people, for sure, which is why maybe they want to walk or run, because there's like a ton of choices that they could be doing with exercises. There's a lot of ways to hurt yourself, do it wrong. Obviously, there's a reason that people hire professional coaches to help them with that. But I think that probably is why, even though people may know what we're saying, that's a benefit to that, there's still a big piece of self-efficacy that's lacking with just not knowing what to do. I've done consults for 11 years with people, and the number one reason they don't start their own program is they have no idea what to do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the point of our business.
Yep.
Yeah. Help people learn how to do it. It's
Sure.
so important. You can't go through your whole life without doing that. You're setting yourself up for disaster down the road.
Yep.
Next one I had, being active versus training, like the difference between training and just like exercise or being active and moving around. There is a really big difference there, as we know. The way that I'm thinking of it is like exercise is, or just being active is random activity, like your sports, your hobbies, your play, maybe even just going to the gym, but like just kind of messing around and doing a different workout, different exercises every time, no plan. Whereas training involves having a plan. There's actually a goal that you're progressively moving toward. You're using specific exercises and specific movements, these exercises are targeted tools to move you towards your goal. Do you want to jump in on this right off the bat?
Well, I think there's a difference there with one has a defined goal and the other doesn't. So I define the first example as play, like this movement, play, you're active, and that's great. We all need more of that. But then you have training. And through play, you shouldn't consider that training. B, it's not going to most likely move you to your goal because it's not specific.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't be healthy. But if your goal is a chin up and you are just really an active person, and that you need a chin up plan.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can easily make a case for both, and like when, how, and why each is good and useful. Just the active play and stuff like you were talking about, fun, stress relieving, movement in general, even if it's not training, it has an antidepressant effect. I mean, it's really, really important for mental health. And I mean, you get a lot of benefit from just moving around and getting your blood circulating, blood flowing. So there are physical health benefits. The case for training would be that, if you have a goal, you actually have to follow a path to get to it, because random play isn't going to get you there usually, unless you're really lucky.
Yeah, I think of two really good examples from a health perspective with the play or constant movement would be like dancing, like people that dance, like it's not a strength training program, but it's really, really healthy and
Great one.
really enjoyable, and they're amazing movers. Another one would be like the Amish community. Like very rarely do you see obese Amish people because they're moving all the time at a very low pace doing manual labor. Now, are the Amish fit in a weight room? No. They are, but they're good general movers with general health for sure. Yep.
Okay. I lost you there for a second, but we're back.
Yeah, we're back. I don't know if they got that, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So the main point there is use both. I mean, we should training is probably something everyone could use, because we all have little things we'd like to fix up, or maybe some goals we'd want to move towards. Nobody's got maybe some people do have the body that they're happy with and perfect with, in which case just play, have fun. But, thinking long-term about the stuff that's going to set you up for a higher quality of life later, maybe there is some training that you want to do to ensure that. But you should also, I really encourage people to play and just get general activity as much as they can, on the days when they're not training.
For sure. I think about ping pong, me and you like ping pong, great hand-eye coordination, reaction, depth perception. There's a lot going on there,
My all-time favorite forms of play. The last fitness error that I had was and this one we don't really have to hit on too much because we talked about it last episode, but just not connecting it to your values. And any of your fitness training is always going to be far more sustainable and enjoyable,
Mhm.
as we've talked about a million times, once you see and feel how it makes your life better, the things you really care about in life, the hobbies or playing with your grandkids or whatever it is that people like to do. Once they see how the results in the gym are getting them improving their life in the areas that they actually really care about,
Mhm.
that's when the whole fitness thing becomes a lot more important and useful to them. And when they can start targeting it more with more specific goals, because they know what they're working towards now, the things that they care about. So yeah, I would just say really getting clear on what you value in life, and then what you need your body to be able to do so that you can enjoy that as much as possible. And then make sure that your training gets you to those results instead of some other results that might be good for some other person, but doesn't connect to your values.
Yeah. Yeah. If you miss the values, identifying the values and linking it with the goals, you're going to be constantly confused and searching for what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think about it like from a generalized approach, what is 90% of people's goal? And that's long-term health and, the ability to move well, not be fit or super fit, but just play with their kids, be confident in a set of, nice clothes, feel good about themselves. That's 9 out of 10. Now, how you get there compared to a CrossFit Games athlete is a totally different path.
Yep.
So, but you can't figure that out unless you have your goals defined.
Exactly. That's
So,
it starts there.
yeah,
Define your values, then define your goals based on the values. Yeah.
Yeah, if you fit into the 9 out of 10 category, which I think there's probably a percentage of people that don't think they fit there, but they really do.
Yeah.
And that'll come with time. But it's a whole nother game in terms of where you're putting a lot of energy. And I mean, like that 9 out of 10 category, a lot of energy is going into food, sleep,
Mhm.
stress management, supplementation, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the 1 out of 10, a lot of time is going into program design, recovery methods, a whole other slew of a plan of attack. And
Yeah.
so getting clear on your values to say, look, I want to be able to hike a high peak at age 90. I want to sleep 8 hours a night. I want to have good hormones.
Mhm.
You know, that's the 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I encourage people to actually have a vision of in your head of what you want to look like, not necessarily like aesthetically, but I mean, what you want your life to look like when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever. So you kind of know what it is that you're shooting for, and you kind of always have that vision in your subconscious as you're planning out how you're going to eat, sleep, train, and whatever. Always kind of make sure that everything that you're doing is leading you towards that end. But I think it definitely starts with having that vision of like, where do I really want to be? Like, what would make me happy is to look like this when I'm 70 and be doing these things. And now how can I start training and living and eating and so on today so that I can be there when the time comes?
For sure. Those are tough conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
At least with me, like,
Big time for me. Yeah.
yeah, you can tell yourself like, the superhero ego stuff, but then when you really dig down to it with what you want, it's a lot of times very different. A lot of times a coach can help pull that out. Other times it's like life events help pull that out. Or just, maturity over
Yeah.
time, but
And values change over time too. So
yeah, and I
that's
think,
totally fine when that you readjust your values
yeah,
10 years later.
for sure. It's a huge stress relief too when you realize that you don't have to beat yourself up over, achieving some high level of something.
Yeah.
Like be honest with yourself. And I think that comes from, an empathetic side of being empathetic with yourself. Like you say you want to lose 30 pounds, and then when you really get down to it, it's because you want to be happier, more confident, or this or that. And it may not be the 30 pounds that gets you there.
Right.
It
Yeah.
could be a
Your
whole,
lack of
like,
confidence or depression could be coming from something else in life, a job you don't like, or some life situation that maybe you should focus on fixing that instead, or
yeah. So
making a
like,
change.
here's a great example. This is really interesting. And so there was some research done. I'm not going to call it a study, but there was some research done on triathletes and divorce rates. And a lot of long distance, like Ironman type caliber and full triathlon distances athletes are generally, I say generally, there's a percentage that are on their way or going through a divorce. And so they're taking that newfound energy and putting it into the 22 hours a week of training that would have been spent on their relationship.
Yeah.
And it's very, very interesting to see that. So, I think it being clear with, like, if you want to be a triathlete, let's say, like you want to do the Lake Placid Ironman and it takes 20 hours a week, do you have that within your time, weekly time and family and relationships, and like, does it fit there?
Yeah. Does it make sense to sacrifice the things that you're going to have to sacrifice to do that training? Will your life be better off if you don't sacrifice these things? Are they actually really important? Your relationships and your time with your significant other and so on. And do you think maybe you'd actually be better off and happier in the long run if you spent some time there and maybe decided not to be an elite triathlete or just do it for fun or something?
That's exactly it. And I've seen and coached people where their initial goal is something quite large, whether it's an Ironman or CrossFit Regionals or something big. But what it is that they were lacking was something else in their life that wasn't fulfilling them. But then if it does come back to fulfill them, let's say their marriage gets better, or relationship with a kid, or their finances get better, they no longer give a shit about
all of a sudden they don't care about the triathlon. Yeah.
No, I'm serious. It's like, boom. And it's really awesome because, like, I have a personality where I'll just, like, ask them, like, what's going on, and, like, this is like some big shift. And then, yeah, you hear this stuff, and I think that's amazing. So when identifying,
awareness they've developed through that.
For sure. And it saved them a lot of time too. Yeah. But yeah, I think that, and I've had to do this myself a lot, is, why are you in pursuit of what you're in pursuit for? And so I could use an example in hunting. Okay. You want to get that huge 8-point buck, right? And why do you want that? Okay, well, there's a few answers. Maybe you want it to show all of your friends on Facebook, and then you want it to hang it in your living room so everyone can see it and admire that. Yep. Or you generally enjoy the challenge and the pursuit and the suck factor of going through getting something like that accomplished. Those are three totally different goals, and none of them are right or wrong, but I think it's being honest. Like, there's a lot of other things that you could do, maybe to impress people at your house, or an Instagram or Facebook post or selfie. Like, maybe it's not something you want to dedicate 3 to 5 years to really getting good at, if because you're not truly enjoying that process for the right reason.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself those hard questions, and I think 99% of the time, deep down, what the answer is. Like, know what your real motivations are, whether it's just ego is driving you, or whether you actually love the process or whatever. Yeah. But sometimes sometimes you'll say that you love the process or you love this or that. If you really got honest with yourself, which is hard to do, somewhere deep down, that you're trying to fool yourself and that you're really just doing it for the Instagram post, or you're just trying to be the cool person or whatever.
Yeah, a question I always go back to is, like, if it's a true value, you're going to do it when no one's looking.
Yeah, that's a great test. Yeah.
That,
Would you do it would you still do this if the Instagram and the accolades or the trophy didn't exist? You know?
for sure. And I think you would see dramatically different actions and answers.
Yeah. A lot of people would dump what they're spending a lot of time on right now once they could no longer get social media likes for it or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a really worthwhile drill to go through in your mind to make sure that you're actually spending your time in a wise place.
Yeah. And I think, you know, and this is going to be, it's on the same topic, but but it's somewhat of a little bit of a curveball here, is that if we had better social connections and love, right, in whether in our relationships, friendships, whatever, I think those goals would change again.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
Yeah, and I don't know how to go farther with that, but I'm
thinking about it. I'm not sure how to either, but notes for future podcasts.
It's an interesting concept that when the social connectivity and love and support in your life is at an all-time high, how much that changes your perspective on goals.
Yeah.
And I don't mean fitness, just fitness. It could be like money, it could be travel, it could be anything. And
for sure. And what I wanted to chime in with there is, I think when you have those things, you know, love and the connections and stuff like that, and you can feel like really fulfilled in all those very important ways, then the need to chase fulfillment by other means goes down. So now all of a sudden you don't need to go chasing the triathlon or the hunting trophy or the rock climbing accolade or whatever.
For sure.
Because you're actually getting what you need from the people that you love around you, you know?
Yeah, and if you look at the days we're living in, not just now, but just leading up to now, right? Like, we've never been so distant, you know, because we have social media with, you know, the fake friend community, but like our true connectivity and tribalism has really never been at its all-time low. And so
Right.
I think it's easy to then divert that energy into proving yourself or receiving some kind of attention somehow through something that may not be totally aligned with what you truly want.
Yeah,
that's a tough place to go.
We're all seeking ultimately happiness and fulfillment, and we're gonna try to find it wherever we can. So like if you don't have those important, you know, cornerstones of a happy, fulfilled life, you know, the connections, the relationship, the deeper meaning, all that kind of stuff, family, friends, then yeah, you got to find fulfillment and happiness somewhere. So now you're feeling kind of hollow inside and you go chase it wherever you can. Doesn't necessarily have to be a triathlon or whatever. There's all sorts of things that people get into to try to find some way to be happier.
Yeah, for sure. We're all on the same journey there, for sure. And a lot of empathy and support and all of that, you know. So
that's why talks like this are good. We get everybody on the same page and get our values straight here.
For sure. It's funny because the first two episodes, we talked a lot about that. It's like you said it, and I never even really thought of this, but like last episode, you said North Star. It's the values are your North Star.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really clear, because there's a lot of definitions for values and you know, but you can overcomplicate it. That does not overcomplicate it. So get your North Star.
Well, we finished off my notes. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to it, or if you want to wrap it up with our outro.
No, this is just a work in progress. I will say that the only platform this is on right now is YouTube. We're new to this, we're figuring it out. If you do like what you're hearing, subscribe, that would be great. If you have a question, what's that?
What's the YouTube channel so that people know?
Yeah, Co-Movement, CO-Movement, and we're the only one there. Just click on that first one. So subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we post a new episode or an exercise video. Like we were talking about clarity and like confusion and all this with exercising and strength training. We have like 160 some videos on there with exercises that make sense.
Yep.
You know, and so second would be questions. If, you know, you do have questions that you want Andy or I to dive into and give our opinion on, we are more than willing to do that and enjoy doing that. So
yeah, we really want to, in future episodes, we really want to have like, you know, top 3, top 5 listener questions from the previous week. So the more that people can, you know, they can put their questions in the YouTube descriptions, you know, just comment on the videos, or I guess if they're friends with, you know, co-movement on Facebook, you know, there's ways to reach us. But, you know, if you're watching this, you're watching it on YouTube right now, since that's where we are. So you can leave questions there. But we want to make sure that we give people the information that they need and touch the topics that they're most confused about and want to learn more about. So questions help us out a lot with that. I'm looking forward to when we start getting some questions rolling in.
Oh yeah, me too. Well, it was a good start. We got some emails and texts and everything last week. So that was
good. Just off one episode. We're off to a great start here. I like it.
Yeah, me too. And finally, you know, if anyone is looking for coaching, whether it's in person or remote, you know, that's what we do. We have some availability at this point. We're a small company. We work with people that are super committed. You know, if that is something that you're looking to do, send us an email, visit our website, co-movement.com, and we'll leave it there. So wrapping up our A is A podcast episode number 2, where we believe truth is a cornerstone to your success. We are going to sign off and see you next week.
All right. See you later.
Okay. See you, Andy.
Bye.